a safari and cruise the Bahamas with Julia.
Hi, my name is Monroe Mann of Unstoppable Artists, and this is Before the Big Break. We are here at the Marriott, right across the street from the Nassau Coliseum on another beautiful summer day, because right across the street is the Vans Warped Tour. And in about 2 minutes, we're going to interview one of that tour's hottest bands. Come on. Today's guest is the band Ludo. They've been on Leno, they've been on Kimmel, and now they're on our show. I think Tim and Andrew are right around the corner. Oh, there they are, the men of the hour, Ludo!
Monroe!
Tim,
How are you?
Andrew,
Yeah, man.
thanks for taking the time out of your busy day. I know you're playing with the band's tour today.
Thanks for having us.
I can't wait to hear your story. Let's get started. So many thousands of bands just never make it. They try, and 50 years later, they're still struggling playing at dive bars in New York City or in Staten Island or similar places in St. Louis. How do you feel? Obviously, the work ethic you guys mentioned and just going without stopping no matter what gets thrown in your way. Is there anything else specifically that you think differentiated you from so many of the other bands that continue to struggle?
I mean, the interesting part about that question is that we are struggling right now. You're struggling very hard right now. There are a lot of things that are happening in our favor, but by no means have we, by most definitions and certainly by our own, have we made it. I think making it for us. There's the professional goal of wanting to reach an infinite number of people, or 6.5 billion people. But then we don't want to reach more than the population of the Earth. We sort of
It's very modest of you.
I know. However, beyond that,
great.
The life goal, the goal for making it as Ludo would be to be able to afford to live comfortably and live well and do this for the rest of our lives.
Well, the follow-up question then is, I was just going to ask, is so many bands, they have a breakout hit, and they're huge over a short time, and then they fizzle out, and you think, whatever happened to that great band?
I would not say that they made it. I would not say that in our band definition.
So let's hear it. What's your definition of making it, and what's your plan to ensure your longevity? I know you guys love U2. What's your plan to become a U2 type of band?
Honestly, I think for us it was always the live show was kind of that was the crux. You know, the point was kind of like you bring up the band that has some big hit and then they're gone or whatever. And obviously we haven't been doing this enough or met enough of those bands yet to, it's not like we can define all of that, but some people when they set out with goals like I want to sell a certain amount of records or make a certain amount of money or whatever, whereas for us it was more allow people to decide for themselves whether they like our band or not, and we always found that the best way to do that was to play live shows and to play live shows all the time, you know? And so in the course of doing that and slowly, becoming a better band, because we were terrible when we started.
We were terrible.
Terrible. But that was the idea. It was like, well, you're just going to be
musically
terrible.
In terms of just not being tight and
just uncomfortable and weird. Now when we're uncomfortable, it's on purpose.
If any band starts off good, I don't like them. They creep me out.
No, but it's...
How'd you do that?
How did you do that?
How'd you do that?
No, you're terrible until you get out there and, I don't know, things start to congeal and make sense later on after being on the road for a long time.
There's a quote, famous
I love quotes.
Samuel,
Let's hear it. Let's hear it, Andrew.
Beckett quote: "Fail again, fail better."
Will you look at the camera directly and say it?
Fail again, fail better.
You listening to this, guys? This is good stuff.
Didn't
Fail
write
again,
true.
fail better. That's your secret to success then.
Yes.
Keep failing, and every time learn a lesson
If
and
we
get your
had
ass
to-
up off the floor and do it again.
Well, and like he says, you're never done, really. Like, even now with all the things that are going on for us, it's not like people's perceptions of that and our perceptions of that are light years apart.
Yeah,
you
people
know?
who were like, "You guys have made it," and we're like,
We have all sorts of things we
"Really?" 'Cause
haven't
I
even
still
started
have
to do.
college loans.
My friend Bob Frazier, he produced with Full House and Benson and Love Boat back in Hollywood, and he always told me, because Monroe, he's been supporting us helping produce this, and he said, Monroe, I guarantee you, every one of your guests are going to say, what do you mean I've made it?
Right.
I haven't made it yet, and it's like just like no matter where you are, you're going to be struggling, but in my eyes, you guys are stars,
Right.
and in your fans' eyes, you guys are gods, and it's so I guess it's perspective. It's
There's definitely a perspective thing at play.
But if you were to turn our secret to success into a Hallmark card, it would say fail again, fail better.
Okay. Hallmark, take note. You have a wonderful pitch here, courtesy of Before the Big Break and Andrew Volpe and the Band Ludo. You guys were on Leno, and the only I love these late night talk shows. The one thing that just always disappoints me is that the bands never get to talk. They never get to share their story.
A lot of times, though, you don't want to hear what a lot of bands have to say.
Oh well, we choose our bands very clearly. We want to hear what you say. You guys are
This is
brilliant musicians.
This is
you guys
shocking to
and
us.
you guys are successful. You're great businessmen, and everyone could learn from you by emulating what you're doing. But my question is, do you ever get to meet Leno? When you were there, because he always came over, he shook all your hands a little bit. And
Yeah.
Right.
Is that the only time you had met him? Was right when he came over, or does he come to your dressing room?
He came to the dressing room a few times,
A few
actually.
times,
It was
yeah.
really cool.
Did you have a chat with you, or is it just very, very courteous and welcome to the show and look
the
forward to
man
playing?
does like 170 shows a year. I imagine eventually it starts to wear down on his will to live as a performer. But that considered, walking by, I mean, he was very
As nice
cool
as
to
can
us.
be.
Yeah, yeah, and so that whole experience was amazing. It was definitely huge for us. That was the second time we'd been on a late night talk show. We were actually on Jimmy Kimmel first, and that was crazy. That was great. Jimmy was really cool to us too.
That whole staff too. Yeah, everybody. Yeah, we've been lucky
Both those
so far.
experiences were amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing. And what do you feel that they, from a marketing point of view, did they boost you, or was it just a nice thing to say, I've been on these shows?
Obviously, it creates the illusion of success, which eventually leads to success. However, at the same time, like everything else in this sort of business, and I imagine in other businesses, it doesn't have any immediate value. It does not mean somebody doesn't see you on Leno for the most part and then go buy your CD. What happens is it's sort of they're all impressions that conspire to eventually make someone go, all right, that's the ninth time I've heard about that band. Everything I've seen I've liked. I care now. I'm going to check it out. And once the scales tip, they're yours. We used to just print up thousands and thousands and thousands of promo CDs and just go to shows in St. Louis whenever we weren't on the road, and we would go to shows of bands that had similar fan bases to ours, and we would pass out thousands of them and trying to promote a show, and hardly any of those kids would come to that show that we were trying to promote. But then they would trickle in 8 months, a year later, be like, I got your CD outside this show, I got your CD outside that show, and eventually it all just sort of builds, and so that's something that we were talking about earlier, about just constantly putting out work and not expecting it to pay off today, tomorrow, next month, but just knowing that putting out good work is eventually going to work in your favor.
The point of that being that the show we were specifically promoting and specifically needed people to come to, those kids didn't come.
Right.
But a year later, they came to some other show, and all of a sudden there were vastly
So
more
a
of them.
long-term perspective is a key to a band's success.
Yeah,
Well, yeah.
and not in just avoiding if-then statements of, well, if we promoted this show, then people will come to that show, or then people will buy our record if we're on Jay Leno. It's
So you're saying look at it as a complete whole and realize every part will help, but you don't know exactly when and where it's going to pay off.
exactly.
Well, and things like musically, those things like Jay Leno and Jimmy Kimmel were good for us just as a band to get better, because it's far more sterile of a situation than a live show normally is. And, you're on camera and there's supposedly all these people watching or whatever. I mean, it's nerve-wracking, and that's the kind of thing you have to go through a few times before you start to get comfortable. But it translates into other shows you do where now you're naturally more comfortable in a setting where maybe you weren't a month ago.
So we're trying to book a show where we actually are getting proctological exams during it. So
You know what?
that
I actually know.
uncomfortable as possible.
Phil, do you know that guy? Can you give him the number when we're leaving here? They actually do shows.
The South Jersey proctologist?
Yeah, he knows some strange people, Phil.
Okay.
I mean,
You figure if you can play well doing that, you can play well under any circumstances.
Unless you genuinely, unchangeably suck.
Fortunately,
And
you
then
don't.
Nothing you do will help.
Unless it's really, really, really good marketing. That'll propel you for
Well.
a decent amount of time until they find
Yeah.
out that you suck.
It'll fill the balloon, but the balloon will explode at some point.
I wanna go on safari with Manna Safari and cruise the Bahamas with Julia Roberts, go romping around with Christina and Brittany, and go to the beach with Christina Ricci. The Hollywood girls are on my mind. I want them all to stand in line. I want them all to shake our hands. I want them all to be crazy morning fans. I want to tour Italy with Angelina Jolie and go backpacking with Anna Paquin, ride my moped with Jennifer Lopez and go to the movies with Cameron Diaz, and run in the fields with Jessica Biel. I want to hang nightly with Keira Knightley. I think I'm in love with Anna Kournikova. I want to know more about Mandy Moore and Cova. The Hollywood girls are on my mind. I want them all to stand in line. I want them all to shake our hands.